All right, chaps. Yeah. So, yeah, these are. This is the second time I've given a talk at this dad's group, and it's well, first of all, it's fantastic to be involved on any level, and I feel a real sense of joy when I see everyone's faces pop up, and we all have this shared project on the side, which is dealing with our families, and it seems to be quite a long-term project, doesn't it? We get some older dads, and they're still doing it, and there's still a lot to do, and so yeah, it's a long-term project, and it's great to overlap in that way with you all, and I really commend you, Sam, for getting this group up and running and having a vision for it, and then all the effort that you put into making it happen. It really is good, and I think it will just get better and better. Sam asked me to talk about energy, and well, actually, when you think about it, it's a massively broad topic, isn't it? Energy. You could take that in a number of different ways. So the way I just thought to take it today, well, the first thing it reminded me of as a broad topic, it wasn't that long ago in Mitra study we were studying the stupa, and in that talk by Bhante, he talks about the symbolism of the stupa and how it's a symbol for the sort of progressive refining of spiritual energies. So the big cube at the bottom of the stupa represents that really sort of static and stable and blocked and sort of heavy energy. And then as the stupa sort of goes up, the energy gets more and more refined, and to eventually till we get to this sort of wide open and free moving energy represented at the top of the stupa. So, what you have with that symbolism, and what you have with that way of thinking about the Dharma life is that, well, I think one of the real advantages is it already starts to assume something that's very fundamental in the kind of cognitive world of Buddhism. So when you think of insight in the sort of cognitive understanding way, it's all these sort of concepts around how do you break down the self and the other, and how to transcend self and other, and all this type of stuff. It gets very head banging, and with your own self, trying to overcome the self in that sort of cognitive way can become, it's almost like you just go around in circles immediately. But when you conceive of the Dharma life as a refining of spiritual energies, I think automatically you start to overcome some of the main problems that sort of at the heart of what we're trying to do as Buddhists. So I think that's a really, really helpful, and it really stuck with me when we studied it. It really stuck with me that wouldn't it be better just to think of the whole thing in terms of energy, and that's what Bhante was suggesting. And then what obviously what you get. There's a couple of different sorts of things that arouses that imagery of the refining of energies and the freeing up of energies, the flow, the even flow, is you get a sense of freedom, don't you? You get a taste of freedom, and of course that's what really is at the heart of Buddhism. I mean, I have to apologize because a lot of this talk, I'm sure you know this stuff, and these talks in a lot of ways, unless I talk very personally, and I hope to do that a bit, but unless I talk personally, it's stuff that you know, and that should be okay, because me talking about it reminds me telling you guys things you already know reminds you, and that's mindfulness, isn't it? Just remembering. How often do we forget all the silly things that we should know about the Dharma and we should be bringing to mind all the time? So in a sense, I'm not really apologizing for reminding you of stuff you already know, but that's what it will be mostly. And I'll hopefully make it fairly short, so if you want to ask questions or chip in with comments, it'd be good to have that as well, I think. So, so we're trying to liberate ourselves, aren't we? There's this problem. I mean, the Buddha's main message really was to say, well, you're suffering there, aren't you? You're suffering. You're bounded up. You're bounded up. In samsara, and you're not only bound up with it now, but you're going to be bound up with it for quite a long time, unless you do something about it. Not that really time should be the issue, but it's the fact that you're bound up with the wrong. You're bound up with something that's not really what you want to, with your precious human opportunity, with your precious human life. You don't really want to be caught up with suffering too much. You want to, well, not escape suffering on its own level, but you want to transcend it. You want to go through that suffering into something that liberates the heart, that matures and opens the heart and liberates the heart and liberates that energy into the world. And then what happens is that at every degree that you do that, it sparks other precious human lives that you come into contact with, and probably all life. Anyone who's been on retreat or had any sort of degree of concentration or positivity, you feel the world responding, don't you? Like, you can just feel animals and nature and of course people responding, and it just has that kind of effect. So for whatever degree that we're able to liberate our energies onto that noble quest, then we are activating the world around us, to a quite a remarkable degree. You can experience yourself changing, and then the world around you changing. Anyway, I thought of a story to bring in, and it's the story of Megea, the story of Megea, which I'm sure you've all heard, but we'll hear it again. So the story of Megea. And Megea was, at the time of this story from the life of the Buddha, Megea was the Buddha's attendant. And what I didn't realize until I was looking this up was that that Megea was a Shakyan. So he was from the Buddha, the tribe that the Buddha came from originally before he left home and became the Buddha. He was a Shakyan. So I didn't clock that before, but it did make me think a little bit, because Ananda was a Shakyan and Megea was a Shakyan. So I don't know about these other attendants, whether they were Shakyans or not, but it did make me think a little bit anyway. I don't know whether this is a valid point or not, but being intimate with somebody and being in kinship with somebody, it does seem to help if you've got a shared culture of sorts. It does help if you feel a natural connection. And I think that's what's so good about this group, is that we all have this thing that sort of naturally connects us and gives us that sense of kinship. And anyway, I just thrown it out there, but I thought it was interesting. But anyway, a bit of a footnote. So anyway, so you'll know this story. So the Buddha and Megea, they're staying together. It's just the two of them, and they're I don't actually know where they were, but it's probably written down somewhere where they actually were. And Megea goes off to fetch the alms from the town, and the Buddha stays outside the town. And Megea goes off for alms, as they do. I like to think about the alms round. I think it's a really wonderful thing just to think about, and like a magical, wonderful thing to have in your culture, where you have these spiritual wanderers passing through the town, just all they want is a bit of food, and then they'll carry on. That's all they really need. And so he goes to get the food, and then on his return to the Buddha, he comes back through a mango grove by some water, you know, cool, lovely spot, and he sort of eyes this spot off and thinks, what a delightful spot, what a place to meditate. That is the spot to do it. You know, green grass, whatever it is, there's something about this place in the mango grove that really appeals to him, and he thinks, I can go there and meditate and I'll really make some progress. And he goes back to the Buddha and drops off the food, and before too long he's sort of into the Buddha saying, you know, this is where I want to go, there's this mango grove, it's just over there. Yeah, I really want to get down to my practice, I really want to get down to my meditation, and in that mango grove is where it's going to happen. And the Buddha doesn't agree. He says, no, just hang on, young fella. He's a bit younger, Meghiya, than the Buddha. And he says, no, it's not the right time to go, Meghiya. Don't go just yet. And but Meghiya's got this thing, he's a bit fixated on this mango grove and going to meditate in the mango grove. So he asks again. And the Buddha's like, no, it's not the right time. Don't go now, Meghiya. And but Meghiya sort of argues with him and brings up the fact that, well, here you are, you're enlightened, you've made all this progress in meditation, you've done all the work. For you, there's nothing more to do. For me, I've got to, you know, I've got to meditate, I've got to practice the Dharma that you've taught, and I need to, you know, I need to meditate basically, and this is the place, you know, where I'll be able to do that. And the Buddha can't argue with that. You know, he's well, you know what he's doing. He's putting things in terms that the Buddha can't argue with, is he? Because here's the Buddha saying, look, this is what you need to do, and here's this guy saying, yeah, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it over here, and he's not really listening. So he says, okay, fine, do what you think is the time for, Meghiya, or do what you think's right, basically. And so he goes off to the mango grove, and he goes to meditate. And you can imagine it too, like, just in me telling this story, it reminds me of some of the states I get myself into when I play cricket. I get so excited to play cricket in a certain sort of like neurotic kind of way, like it all builds up to that match. I'm playing cricket at the moment. I've sort of got a bit back into it, and I've got a match in the first team tomorrow actually, and I could just feel it already. You know, it's like all this. I just put all this pressure on myself. You know, I can do it. You know, I can go out there and really do it. And so I could sort of. He's already sort of put all this pressure on himself, hasn't he? By sort of saying to the Buddha, "I'm going to go off and do this meditation thing." But anyway, that's a little bit of my spin on the story. But he turns up at the mango grove. He goes to meditate, and of course, he can't settle at all. His energy is all up here, and it's round and round, and he's getting assailed by greed, hatred, delusion, greed, hatred, delusion, greed, hatred, delusion. Just, you know, he overcomes one, he moves on to another one, craving. You know, just round and round he goes. Anger, frustration. You know, we've all been there. You know, when you lock onto something, and then you work through that, and then you're angry with yourself, and then then you go back onto somebody else or something else, and you just go round and round. We've all been there, and then you've got all these extra layers to it because he's in the mango grove now, and it's not only where he's supposed to do well, he's going worse than what he expected. So all these expectations are loaded onto it, and he's going, and and in the end, his energy can't even be contained. He has to just get up, and just before he knows it, he's up and he's out of the mango grove, and he's heading back to the Buddha with the tail between the legs, and saying to the Buddha, well, you never guess what happened. And and the Buddha was like, yeah, well, I could have guessed what happened, you know, he went off and when I didn't advise it. And but whether or not he said that, is not what's recorded in the scriptures. Actually, what was said when Megillah comes back to speak to the Buddha, he comes back and says, you know, I was attacked by Mara. Basically, I've had all this trouble trying to meditate, and the Buddha just goes straight into a teaching, and he goes straight into 5 factors. And I'm just going to sort of depart from the story now and just give you these 5 aspects that the Buddha gave Megillah. And these are 5 things. He says, Megillah, these are 5 things that really conduce to that liberation of the heart, to that calm energy, to what you went to set out for. This is what you really need. And the first thing he starts with is friendship. So he's with the Buddha, and he, you know, it's almost comical. It's like for us to think, imagine being with the Buddha and then deciding to go off on your own. It is sort of almost comical, but I'm sure we can relate on some level to that, you know, having really good conditions, or even having a really good teacher, but this bit of your pride or ego or whatever is wanting to go it alone and do, you know, prove yourself or something, you know, I can really get into that. I can get into trying to prove myself. And I think it too, like, you can really get into this in a sort of, you know, when you want to, we all want to feel loved, don't we? We all want to feel appreciated and valued and all the rest of it. And I think we can't help but getting into, what is it I need to do to feel that? What do I need to do for them people to love me? And I mean, it was interesting. We were just talking, a couple of us on this call before you all joined, about kids in private schools just having all these activities to do. You know, they've got all this stuff to do. They're just kept really super busy. And Philippe was saying how, you know, kids need to be allowed to get bored, you know, and I think that could be like a real antidote, you know, to that whole thing of, you know, thinking that you need to do something to feel valued and to feel loved. And you can imagine it, can't you? A kid that's always doing stuff and trying to achieve and perform, getting kind of caught up in that world and thinking that's the only way for me to ever feel loved, is to sort of be the best at whatever it is I've got to do. And it's not going to be helpful ultimately, because, you know, you may be in really good conditions and you may just carry on in that momentum, like Megillah is, thinking that he needs to go off and do something for himself, when what the Buddha's saying is, well, you're with the Buddha, you just stay there, you just stay with your friend, and your energies will just change quite naturally just through his presence. And even through his protection, you know, like the protection of the Buddha. You're not going to, being around the Buddha or being around a good friend, you know, a good person, that checks your behavior all the time, because you don't want to, you know, I'm not going to come into this thing here and start swearing and carrying on drinking a beer. You know, it's like where you are in the world has a massive impact on your behavior. And so there's a protection to the Buddha's company, and there's a protection to our friends that we keep. There's a real protection in their company. And yeah, so this is where the Buddha starts. He starts with friendship. And in a way, I think actually a lot of these things just come, the other 4 things come out of that context. So the second thing that he mentions to Megillah is about ethical conduct. And yeah, I just thought I'd share something. I don't know why this stuck with me, but I think it might have even been in chapter. I was listening to Jnana Varcha talk about this, and those of you that know Jnana Varcha, like his sort of conduct, his ethics are just so admirable, and you know, I'm a much bigger and better person in his company. But I remember him recently, it wasn't that long ago, he was talking about something that he was up to as a young man when he first came along to the LBC, and going for a walk with Ratnagosha, and then Ratnagosha saying to him, I can't remember what the thing was, but he was troubled by something, some ethical issue that he had, some behavior that he was doing, and he was like, and Ratnaghosha was just like, look, focus on the positive precept, and that will just fall away naturally. You don't need to worry about that too much. You don't need to kind of uproot that thing. Just focus on the positive precept, and that will just take care of itself. That will naturally just fall away, that thing that you're doing that you're not so sure or pleased about. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring that in. I just thought, I'm not going to say much about the sort of ethical side of things, but I thought that was a really interesting illustration. It's really stuck with me, that somebody that I really look up to and really affects my behavior, he was given that advice, and it seems to have really made a difference. And then the third condition that the Buddha gives Meghiya to help liberate his mind is he suggests that discussion of the Dharma is Dharma study, or discussion of the Dharma is, well, in those days there's no sort of study in that sense that we think of it, but that discussion of the Dharma, that plunging into the Dharma, and going into it with people where you talk about it, you talk through it, and you really dive down into it and share your experience and share your understanding. And I mean, our Mitra group just finished, a couple of weeks back, and I noticed that not having that condition in my life already, I could just feel like a bit adrift. I don't know about you, Sam, but often I do resist that. That's Tuesday night comes around really quick, and it's like, have you done the study, a bit of cramming, all the rest of it, and there's always a bit of resistance. But I never find that I might resist the build up or the start of it, but I can't ever remember regretting one evening, and we did it for 3.5 years, pretty much every week. I mean, we hardly missed it. We'd have a little summer break, a little Christmas break, but that was it. We were really consistent, and yeah, just that context. I think I'm quite keen to get back into it as soon as possible. Where am I up to? So the fourth thing the Buddha talks to Meghiya about is effort, and this is sort of coming back to Meghiya's sort of original. So he sort of politely takes him through these, but this now is much more addressing Meghiya's direct concern that he had originally, which was meditation and effort in meditation. And the Buddha sort of comes back to the right kind of effort to make. And that the right kind of effort to make. And Bante's really, I think this is his sort of fundamental position on meditation, actually, from the bits that I've read of Bante talking about meditation. I think what his fundamental position, Bante, is that you practice trying to have an uninterrupted flow of skillful mental states. You try and practice that all the time, as much as you can, everywhere. And you can have that when you're sitting, or you can have that at any time. And it doesn't matter whether you're sitting, walking, or doing an activity. You're trying to keep an uninterrupted flow of skillful mental states of love and compassion, joy, pleasure, understanding, generosity. You're trying to sort of build that into your mental states all the time, and that's the type of effort that you're making to cultivate those skillful mental states. And then the sitting bit is like, it's a secondary bit to all that. And I think that's probably, I think that's really, now he's sort of coming around to that real, this is what you really set out to do, Meghiya. You need to do it all the time. It's no good going to the mango grove and then making it happen there. You just need to do it all the time. And it's not, it's obviously not easy, but it's going to be easy if you put these other conditions in place first, like friends, like ethics. And have I done that? Yeah, I think. The Dharma study, that's right, yeah. And then the last thing that the Buddha says that conduces to that spiritual maturity, to that liberation, is insight and penetrating insight. And what, you know, I tried to sort of give you a sort of rough blueprint, I suppose, of that in the meditation. I don't know how well it went, but you know, that working with the mind, with the view of trying to make the mind as able as possible to recognize reality. So it's like we don't try and go out and grab reality. We try and prepare the world. We try and prepare our minds so that reality can just flow into it, and we can appreciate it, and we can you know, it becomes sort of what we are as well. We I guess what it is, you know, flipping it around the other way, is we become our mind, and our mind becomes more united with the reality that's just coursing through all the time. We drop the whole overlay of what we're doing that's not reality, and we just live in the reality that is actually happening all the time, everywhere. So that's my little way of talking about insight, how the Buddha actually explained, or what illustration he gave to Megillah, I don't know, but you know, you can imagine something to do with the Four Noble Truths, or you know, the marks of conditioned existence, or something very traditional. You know, this is an oral tradition where, you know, the teachings of the Buddha are learned by heart and repeated again and again and again. And yeah, so that's that's what he said. But that's the 5 sort of areas that he covered when he was talking to Megillah about liberating our energies, and yeah, going back to that image of the stupa, sort of moving from a blocked up, in a way, a not very useful or helpful mind, into something much more free and much more able to be of use to the world and to ourselves. Yeah, so that's it basically.